Welcome back to this new inspirational video. Today I wanted to go on with the chapter called How to Use the Will, chapter 9 from the Science of Getting Rich. Now Wallace wrote the following: to set about getting rich in a scientific way, you do not try to apply your willpower to anything outside of yourself. You have no right to do so. It is wrong to apply your will to other men and women in order to get them to do what you wish done. It is as flagrantly wrong to coerce people by mental power as it is to coerce them by physical power. If compelling people by physical force to do things for you reduces them to slavery, compelling them by mental means accomplishes exactly the same thing. The only difference is in methods. If taking things from people by physical force is robbery, then taking things by mental force is robbery also. There is no difference in principle. You have no right to use your willpower upon another person, even for his own good, for you do not know what is for his good. The science of getting rich does not require you to apply power or force to any other person in any way whatsoever. There is not the slightest necessity for doing so. Indeed, any attempt to use your will upon others will only tend to defeat your purpose. You do not need to apply your will to things in order to compel them to come to you. That would simply be trying to coerce God and would be foolish and useless as well as irreverent. You do not have to compel God to give you good things, any more than you have to use your willpower to make the sun rise. You do not have to use your willpower to conquer an unfriendly deity or to make stubborn and rebellious forces do your bidding. Substance is friendly to you and is more anxious to give you what you want than you are to get it. To get rich, you need only to use your willpower upon yourself. You see, now it's gonna get very interesting because the previous chapter taught us about thinking in a certain way. Before that, we actually started talking about the feeling of gratitude. So first, you want to learn to feel great, to become grateful, to feel in love with life itself. Then you start thinking about what you really want to achieve and want to realize, the sorts of things you want to have, be, or do. And now we get on to the willpower, because we're going to use our willpower to keep ourselves focused on these dreams. That is the real trick. Really think about it, most people have dreams, but they aren't really properly focused on them. But this is, if you analyze any successful person out there, this is what they've been doing, either consciously or unconsciously. A little while ago, I started reading a list of a few people that came from rags to riches. They're pretty interesting stories at times. But all that they have in common, I realize, is the fact that even though they were in a great poverty or in bad circumstances, they still had a clear idea, somehow, some way, of what they really wanted. And they kept themselves focused on their dreams and worked on it day in and out. And then they ended up with huge success. That is essentially what we're called upon to do for ourselves if we want to realize our dreams. So you're going to have to worship the vision and actions by using your will to stay focused in this way. Now Wallace went on to say, when you know what to think and do, then you must use your will to compel yourself to think and do the right things. That is the legitimate use of the will in getting what you want, to use it in holding yourself to the right course. Use your will to keep yourself thinking and acting in a certain way. Do not try to project your will or your thoughts or your mind out into space to act on things or people. Keep your mind at home. It can accomplish more there than elsewhere. I made an additional note to that sentence saying, keep it focused on your own goals and desires. It's pretty clear forward, isn't it? Now use your mind to form a mental image of what you want, and to hold that vision with faith and purpose, and use your will to keep your mind working in the right way. I made another additional note there as well, saying do this in all areas. That might be a huge request, but that is ultimately what you want to train yourself to do. To always use your will to think of how you want things to be in all areas of your life. So not just your career or finances, perhaps your love life, your health, where you're going to travel to, all these things that you would love to have in a good way. You're going to have to train yourself to stay focused on visions of fulfilled desires in all of those areas. So use the will to always feel gratitude and faith for the visions that have been developed inside your consciousness. Now he went on to say, the more steady and continuous your faith and purpose, the more rapidly you will get rich, because you will make only positive impressions upon substance, and you will not neutralize or offset them by negative impressions. Now pay close attention to this when it happens though. If you feel like you're getting off track, get back on track as soon as possible, because the picture of your desires, held with faith and purpose, is taken up by the formless and permeates it to great distances throughout the universe, for all I know. Now, if you want to know how this happens, it's because of your emotions. They impress the universal substance. Your emotions are a much stronger form of energies than thinking or imagining on its own ever will be, as long as you're in this physical body. We're going to need to invoke our emotions in order to impress it upon the formless substance of the universe itself. So it starts to compel us to do what's needed, but it also starts to compel things to come to us. He actually goes on to explain this in his own way. As this impression spreads, all things are set moving towards its realization. Every living thing, every inanimate thing, and the things yet uncreated are steered toward bringing into being that which you want. All force begins to be exerted in that direction. All things begin to move towards you. The minds of people everywhere are influenced toward doing the things necessary to the fulfilling of your desires, and they work for you unconsciously. But you can check all this by starting a negative impression in the form of substance. Doubt or unbelief is as certain to start a movement away from you as faith and purpose are to start one towards you. It is by not understanding this that most people who try to make use of mental science in getting rich make their failure. Every hour and moment you spend in giving heed to doubts and fears, every hour you spend in worry, every hour in which your soul is possessed by unbelief, sets a current away from you in the whole domain of intelligent substance. All the promises are unto them that believe, and unto them only. Notice how insistent Jesus was upon this point of belief, and now you know the reason why. So an additional note to remember is, use the will to always imagine about what you do want. Because here he explains a real issue we all face at times, is that even though we know what we want, at times we might start to doubt, worry, have unbelief, as he would say, about whether we can really realize our dreams. This is pretty human tendency for us all. But we want to understand, okay, when it happens, get back on track. Redirect the mind towards what you want. Don't stay in the place of doubt and uncertainty. Get back to faith, hope, and loyalty to your own dreams. If you start doubting, either say it within your heart or out loud to yourself, the dream that you do want to realize. So in my case, if I work on my dream concerning this YouTube channel and other goals in my life, if I catch myself doubting whether I can really do something meaningful with it or really achieve something big with it, because I'm doubting in my heart for whatever reason, I just say out loud to myself what my dream and goal is, and I say this is what I want and I'm going for it. So I redirect my consciousness to what I want, get it away from the doubts as fast as possible. Now Wallace went on to say that since belief is all important, it behooves you to guard your thoughts. And as your beliefs will be shaped to a very great extent by the things you observe and think about, it is important that you should command your attention. And here the will comes into use, for it is by your will that you determine upon what things your attention shall be fixed. If you want to become rich, you must not make a study of poverty. Things are not brought into being by thinking about their opposites. Health is never to be attained by studying disease and thinking about disease. Righteousness is not to be promoted by studying sin and thinking about sin. And no one ever got rich by studying poverty and thinking about poverty. Medicine as a science of disease has increased disease. Religion as a science of sin has promoted sin. And economics as a study of poverty will fill the world with wretchedness and want. Do not talk about poverty. Do not investigate it or concern yourself with it. Never mind what its causes are. You have nothing to do with them. What concerns you is the cure. Now what is the cure? Well, it's the vision of what you desire to realize instead of what you're observing. The will helps you to focus on the positive, on your vision, and develop your will so that you think and imagine only about what you want. That is really the cure. Think about it, what he just said. Things are not brought into being by thinking about their opposites. It actually is so obvious, but yet that's what we tend to do if we're not aware of the power of our own consciousness. So you have doubts and worries and then you go along with it. But that's thinking about the opposite of what you want. You want to start thinking about what you really want, about the results that you really want for yourself, and then keep your mind focused on it through your will. That's all that you're asked to do. and as you do so, you will automatically become compelled and inspired on how to go about it as time ticks on. Now he went on to say, do not spend your time in charitable work or charity movements. All charity only tends to perpetuate the wretchedness it aims to eradicate. Now, I mean, personally, if I were to give money to charity, which I've done in the past, I don't really think or look at it as like that. But this kind of reminds me of something my mentor would say about this text as well. He would remind me that perhaps in his day and age, 100 years ago, there might have been more bizarre charity movements that were probably not doing anyone any good. And even to this day, there are charity movements like that. So we have to be mindful of who we donate money to if that's what we want to do. But that's pretty, obvious for most people, I assume. But the point here is that we also shouldn't feel obliged to be involved in charity thinking that this is how we can get our way into heaven. Some people think that. But you get your way into heaven by obeying God and by expressing what God wants to do with and through you, so always be mindful of that. He did say that he doesn't mean that you should be hard-hearted or unkind and refuse to hear the cry of need. But you must not try to eradicate poverty in any of the conventional ways. Put poverty behind you and put all that pertains to it behind you and make good. Get rich, that is the best way you can help the poor. And you cannot hold the mental image which is to make you rich if you fill your mind with pictures of poverty. Do not read books or papers which give circumstantial accounts of the wretchedness of the tenement dwellers, of the horrors of child labor, and so on. Do not read anything which fills your mind with gloomy images of want and suffering. You cannot help the poor in the least by knowing about these things, and the widespread knowledge of them does not tend at all to do away with poverty. What tends to do away with poverty is not the getting of pictures of poverty into your mind, but getting pictures of wealth into the minds of the poor. You see, this is so powerful, and that's essentially what I'm doing with my channel. Now, I'm not saying that I consider my viewers poor. I hope you're not, at least. Maybe some of you are, you never know, right? But I'm not judging or anything. But what I am trying to do is to help people build pictures of success and wealth and all that they desire in their minds through the videos I upload so that they can live a wonderful life for themselves. So another thing to remember again is that in the chapter on thinking in a certain way, he talked about a sailor holding his destination in mind. Let me look it up real quick here because I have the book in my hands. He said in chapter about the thinking in a certain way that you need to keep your clear mental picture in mind as the sailor has in mind the port which he is sailing the ship. Now I wrote an additional note concerning the will that, like the sailor, stay focused on your goals, on your vision, on your dreams. Again, that's all you're asked to do with your own consciousness. Now he went on to say that you are not deserting the poor in their misery when you refuse to allow your mind to be filled with pictures of that misery. Poverty can be done away with not by increasing the number of well-to-do people who think about poverty, but by increasing the number of poor people who purpose with faith to get rich. The poor do not need charity, they need inspiration. Charity only sends them a loaf of bread to keep them alive in their wretchedness, or gives them an entertainment to make them forget for an hour or two. But inspiration will cause them to rise out of their misery. If you want to help the poor, demonstrate to them that they can become rich. Prove it by getting rich yourself. The only way in which poverty will ever be banished from this world is by getting a large and constantly increasing number of people to practice the teachings of this book. People must be taught to become rich by creation, not by competition. Every man who becomes rich by competition throws down behind him the ladder by which he rises and keeps others down. But every man who gets rich by creation opens a way for thousands to follow him and inspires them to do so. You know, a couple of years ago when I first started my previous YouTube channel, which I've mentioned a couple of times by now, that is exactly what I set out to demonstrate for myself. I was like, he says here that if I am a creator, I will inspire thousands to follow me. Alright, let me give this a shot. And so I started creating. And I made sure I was passionate about what I was creating at the time. And it really happened. I managed to reach tens of thousands of followers. I apparently inspired them to follow me. So it's really awesome to know that this works. I know it from experience by now. And you can discover this for yourself from experience if you dare to apply the techniques that he's talking about. So getting away from competition, of competing with others, and instead just create your own unique things and share them with the world. You are not showing hardness of heart or an unfeeling disposition When you refuse to pity poverty, see poverty, read about poverty, or think or talk about it, or to listen to those who do talk about it. Use your willpower to keep your mind off the subject of poverty and to keep it fixed with faith and purpose on the vision of what you want. Now that is the end of the chapter. And I find a very important thing to share with you is the term poverty can be exchanged with anything else that you prefer. So you might not be dealing with poverty, but you might be dealing with being in a job that you don't like, or being in a relationship that you realize I don't like this, or being in a location that you do not like. Whatever it is, as you said in the final line, use your willpower to keep your mind off the subject of poverty. You can change the word poverty around to whatever you want. Use your willpower to keep your mind off the subject of the job you don't like, for example, and then keep it fixed with faith and purpose on the vision of the job or career you do want. Really let that sink in and start analyzing for yourself where you're allowing your mind to drift off into the negative, and then use your willpower to focus it on the positive, on the vision of how you would like these things to be. Then you're using your willpower in the right way. So as a final additional note, I want to tell you, we want to go forward, always, toward the vision. The vision resides in the inner world of imagination. That is where our salvation comes from. So stay loyal to your own vision. Now, if you're new to this channel, consider subscribing to receive inspirational videos on a regular basis. And with that being said, dear viewer, never forget that we are the dreamers.